So, good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone joining us today from across the world. It's a pleasure to have you to be part of this Vynners community. We're recording a section of the event today, so a big welcome to those of you watching this on demand as well. Today's the seventh installment of our Vynners community, and we have two champions, Star Vynners from Enel Green Power and Shell, sharing their insights with you today. My name is Shrey, the Senior Director, Senior Digital Marketing and Events Lead for Vyntelligence, and I'm going to just briefly introduce the event. While I do, please do take this opportunity to comment your name, where you work, where you are in the world, what the weather's like, in the chat so we can all get acquainted. Please also make sure to use this chat function throughout the event to ask questions for our speakers or anything from one of our team. Where possible, we'll respond directly within the chat to you, or we'll pick up these questions at the end, especially if they're for our speakers. So what do we have in store for you today? First, since it's our seventh session, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the Vynners community, how it started, what it means, and why we're all here. Then we'll jump straight into the exciting bit, the part that you're all here for, the winning stories from Mercedes Olster and Steve Baird. Next, we'll summarize their top tips so you have tangible steps that you can take back with you into your work and help implement change and build remote capabilities with new innovations. Then our Senior Director for Product, Stuart, will give a quick update on some of the new features and developments since our last event. Next, we'll have a chance for a quick Q&A, which I'm quite excited about. So do get those questions in early. And finally, you have to keep your phones handy because you're going to have the chance to exclusively try out SmartVideoNotes today. That's right, from your phone directly here. Today's session is around remote capabilities for field service with SmartVideoNotes. The purpose with which we started the Vynners community was to share knowledge and learnings from our community. Each customer, prospect, user, influencer, and team member is constantly learning and gaining fresh insights on how innovation is helping us excel at digitalization and build remote capabilities with greater efficiency. The Vynners community is the forum where we ask you, members of our community, to come together to learn, share, and succeed. Our masterclasses have always hosted a mix of topics, focusing on specific areas such as health and safety, digitalization, and innovation, all the way to diving into key larger themes like moving from insights to actions, digital disruption, and sustainability. Our focus never shifts, though. With each masterclass, we hope to share more key learnings, insights, and top tips with you from our Star Vynners, people who we recognize as champions of our core values. That's what it's all about for us. Our purpose from the start has been to help busy professionals simplify their work life through effectively applying innovation and seeing benefits from a visual data-centric approach. And we're so lucky to have seen this firsthand. Our growing community now spans almost 20 countries. And we've all aligned to our core values here at Vyntelligence, a common purpose to simplify business operations, bring agility and efficiency at work, and embrace safety and sustainability at the core of everything that we do at our work. Simplicity, velocity, trust, and mutuality. Those are our core values here at Vyntelligence, and we're proud to say that we see them championed every day. So today, we'd like to say a big thank you to each and every one of you that has joined us and others that haven't been able to. We sincerely celebrate the Vynners who have been with us on this journey of innovative and transformative business change to make everyday work simpler, safer, and faster. We've got a great session lined up for you today, and without further ado, I'd like to now introduce our first Star Vynner, Mercedes Olster. Mercedes currently works for Enel Green Power North America, where she is an operations and strategy specialist. She has been in the energy field for 5 years now and has worked in both renewable and energy efficiency. She's passionate about driving positive change and working with new technology. She earned her MBA in Energy and Sustainability at Franklin Pierce University. She's a co-lead for Enel's Disability and Caregiving ERG and is working with the Women's Energy Network to be a founding member of the Northern New England chapter. Mercedes likes to spend her time away from work hanging out with her pets and reading a good book. I know a lot of us like to do the same. If I had a pet, I definitely would hang out with it all the time. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us here today on the call, but we've managed to get a fantastic recording where we had a chat with her earlier of her telling her winning story. So we'll proceed on to that. So thanks for being here with us, Mercedes, and being a Vinner. We're so glad that you could join us. We'd just like to start off with you telling us a little bit about what you do and at work, and what is it that you really enjoy? What makes you tick?
So I am the operations and strategy specialist. So I help our head of engineering and construction with any of the strategic initiatives that we need to implement. I really enjoy being a force of change and seeing positive outcomes, making people's lives easier. And on top of that, our sustainability mission is very important to me.
That's amazing. What are some of, why would you say that you find yourself to be passionate about things like causes, let's call them, like sustainability and innovation and bringing about change?
I think that we can no longer operate how we've been operating, especially looking at the state of the planet and in business in general. There needs to be a change. I think COVID taught us that with the way that we approach both working and family life and how we interact with the environment around us. And so I want to be a drive in the right direction.
Is that something that you apply both at work and outside of work as well?
Absolutely. So I have a net zero house. So my home is completely, we have solar and wood heat, so we don't use, anything from the grid, and it's energy efficient. So I like to carry that across all aspects of my life.
And did you find how has that been for you so far? Obviously, you've managed to get a net zero house, which is, I think, really, really inspiring. That's super cool. And that's not an easy feat in itself, right? To get a net zero house. So yeah. How has that been for you from sort of implementing that into home life and also throughout work, because change takes a long time and it takes people to get along with you to make change happen. Would you want me to talk about some of the challenges that you faced and how you've kind of overcome them and what you've felt about being on the journey to be a change maker and innovator?
Yeah, I think one of the main challenges is trying to get people to understand your ideas. When we were talking about a net zero home, my husband wasn't necessarily on board. He's not as excited about renewable energy maybe as I am. And so it's one of the challenges going to be to get people to understand your viewpoint. Mm-hmm. Why is this important to you? What is your mission? How this is going to impact them. And I think that directly relates to your organization. You have to make everybody that you're interacting with understand the why so that they can believe what you believe.
But how receptive have people been to that? What are some of the difficulties that you faced, or has it been fairly easy? Are you very good at convincing people that sustainability and net zero and applying new kind of changes is that important?
It's been, I'd say 50-50. So in my organization, it's rather large, and the advice that I was given early on is it takes a lot to turn a ship this big. So that is what I always remember when I'm trying to have somebody buy into, the mission that I believe in. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's met very receptively, and other times, we're a global company and other people have other ideas and things might not work where they are that work where I am. And so having to overcome those communication gaps is a struggle that I do face, but overall, I would say it's been positive.
So do you maybe just want to tell our audience a little bit about how sort of Vin came about with Enel and what were some of the sort of change initiatives that you and the team had to go through, maybe some of the challenges and kind of where you are with Vin now and what benefits are you finding with, applying this positive change and new innovation into an organization and a ship this big?
Yeah, our innovation team actually found Vyntelligence. They try to do a lot of work with startup companies and bring new ideas to Enel. And I saw it knowing the direction the company was going in and decided that everybody needed to see it. So I started to share it with our head of engineering and construction and a couple of our other upper management teams, knowing that we were going to change our focus to a quality-driven organization. And what Vin really allows us to do is track our quality across our portfolio, both globally and locally, which is not something that we have currently. So we had to, once the local unit was on board, we had to convince our global unit. And so we were having a little bit of trouble, but what it really took was making the personal connection. The Vyntelligence team came out and met our team in Rome, and they had great conversation, broke bread together, and now our central unit is looking at deploying Vyntelligence as well. So,
what are some of the things and changes that you've seen or benefits that you've seen so far with these sort of variety of capabilities that you've been able to put in? Does that personal touch, how did that compare to what you were doing before, and how you're sort of doing things now or looking to do things now with the new innovation?
Yeah, so before, when we were talking about our sites, they weren't standardized. Everything was being done differently, which was okay because we only had a couple of projects. But as we grow and scale, we need to work towards standardization, and we need to be able to have support in place for our site teams. And that's something that Vin has really helped us with. We are able to build out storyboards that we can use to make sure that all of our teams are looking at what we need them to look at to ensure the quality is there, and that there's a remote expert who can help in, seconds if something is wrong, which is not a capability we had before. So there's been a lot of benefit to adding Vin to our site.
So I'd love for you to touch a little bit just upon the kind of sort of simplicity of the technology and how it's been able to sort of fit in rather than sort of take away or be another component that you have to another cog you have to get turning for the growth machine to happen. And a little bit about the speed. How have you found it fairly easy? Has it taken a long time, or is it something that you kind of plugged and play essentially,
Yeah, so one thing that really attracted us to Vin initially was that changes are made very quickly, within 24 to 48 hours, and it's completely customizable. So we have the ability to build it how we want. Normally, when you introduce a new technology to a site team, especially in construction, there is this feeling of, oh, this is going to make my life more difficult. This is the first tool that I can proudly say that has been implemented and introduced to the teams where they're like, wow, this really helps. This is easy. We like it. It's, easy to get going. It's easy to sign on to. It's easy to understand. You don't have to have a degree in the application to use it, which is really nice, especially for people who are maybe not used to working with technology or, not as comfortable on a cell phone or an iPad as other people. So it's just been a great addition to our team.
That's fantastic to hear. And I think you touch upon a very good point because, there is often quite a big shortage of expertise in the industry right now. And that's, as we go forward, that's happening more and more because there seems to be a skills gap with people who have been in the industry for a long time, who are now coming to sort of the end of their tenure, and a lot of new workers coming in. And so it's about, bridging that gap can often be difficult, where some people are super technology savvy and all they want to do is kind of use technology to make their lives easier, whereas some people are so used to the way that they're doing things that new technology can be quite daunting. How has that kind of been for you with the resources, maximizing your resources and the ease of adoption for these new skilled workers?
We have historically struggled with being able to take all of the tribal knowledge that the people who have been in the industry for a long time have and get it somewhere where everybody can access it. So Vin has been instrumental in kind of bridging that. I think that's one of the first major issues that we had to overcome. As far as the people who have been in the industry a while who might not be as comfortable with technology, of course they have to use it in their everyday lives now. But having a system that you can build from the ground up, get them involved early in, have them understand the process and really be involved in creating the tool from the beginning has been instrumental in helping us build something that is easy for everybody on site to use.
What would be some of your top tips that you would share for our audience to help from your experience so that they can champion innovation within their own organization? Some anecdotes maybe from experience, or just a couple of 3 to 5 top tips that you might have that everyone can take home with them.
I would say to start small, get a few key people involved and really define what you're looking to accomplish, why you're doing this, what you hope to accomplish out of it, and have that well documented before you move it to a larger scale. I think that we moved too fast. We brought it to upper management before we maybe had that fully defined out. And so we had to go back to the drawing board a couple of times and redefine, why this was important. Then on the next step, make sure you include all the groups that are going to be involved in the decision making, even if you don't think that it's going to affect them, because you never know. So get your IT department involved, get your construction department involved. People that you might not expect need to know about what's happening probably do in some way. So defining that list and getting them in early will save you time at the end. And then also get the people who are going to be using the tool involved early as well. Help them build the tool out, help them to understand why this is important. Don't just throw it at them, because it's going to be met with a negative reaction. It's going to be, this is change and change is scary. And if you show them that, yes, it's change, but it's positive change and here's why, and here's your stake in it, you're going to be more successful.
So finally, just to wrap up then, what do you see for the future of innovation and change within your organization? And what part do you see Vyntelligence playing with that? And kind of what do you hope to get out of Vyntelligence, and how Vyn can help you?
I would love to be able to extend Vyntelligence to the contractors working on our site, including our site team, so that we have the ability to work with them, make sure that the quality of our plants is there, because at the end of the day, we own and operate these plants for 30 years. And we want to make sure that we're not doing any more damage to the environment than necessary, and that the product that we're building is a phenomenal product that's going to be able to meet the needs of the people who are relying on it, but also not harm the environment. We're not having to go back in and dig things up and change things around because things may have been installed improperly or faulty. We want to, we do a lot of work on our sites to leave the land better than we found it. And every time we have to go back and fix something, we're disturbing that, whether it's the bees or the sheep or the cows that we have. We want to make sure that we're upsetting them as little as possible. And I think Vyn is going to play a key role in helping us build safe, quality products moving forward.
So Vyn is obviously a complete solution product that we have for you. What do you think about the power of video, using like SmartVideoNotes as a technology? Because I think a lot of the time, especially in the industry right now, the digitalization aspect is something that people are trying to achieve, but I think video maybe sometimes gets left behind because they think it's more of a consumer style technology rather than something for an integratable business solution. What would be your thoughts on that?
I think video is hugely important. It gives you the context for what you're looking at. You're able to show the area around what you're looking at, or maybe you're talking through the problem, and so you might be able to catch things that you wouldn't catch when you're going back and writing your notes, and all of that is available to use later. And then on top of that, the AI technology that Vyn has that allows you to start looking at what your reoccurring issues are, and how you can fix them, and bringing those to the people in the position to fix them, so that you can avoid doing it in the future. I mean, it's efficiency. It's what every business is looking for. And having those extra tidbits make all the difference.
How have you found the reception from people who are using the AI? Because just from the same context of AI is usually a little bit daunting. And for someone maybe who's not used to anything related to AI within their work to then be like, here's a lot of AI that's doing all these funky things for you. How has that been for you and your team? How have you found that?
Yeah, so Vyn's AI is very simple to utilize. It's not this big computer that, is daunting and scary, and you have to run all of this data through, and you're just taking the videos that you're already making, and then you're getting outputs, and they're coming up on a dashboard. And so as far as the end user goes, it's almost invisible.
You've just told us that it sometimes can be quite simple and straightforward, so that's amazing. I think that's all that we have for today. So thanks a lot, Mercedes. Thanks for being with us. Do you have any other things that you maybe want to say to the audience who are here wanting to learn from you and learning how to build, sort of focusing on remote capabilities in the field service industry using a new technology like SmartVideoNotes?
I would say go for it. If you're thinking about it, construction is historically pen and paper. It's the slowest to move because it works. Pen and paper has always been there. It's always done the job. But to be able to move to a new technology and to gather more information and to have more insight into what is actually going on in the field has been extremely beneficial. And it's a scary leap, of course. Change is always scary, but I would say this one's worth it.
Thanks for being here with us, and thank you for being a Star Vinner, and congratulations to you on that.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So that was our chat with Mercedes. Now I'll hand over to Ansel, who will share and talk with Steve on his winning stories from Shell.
Welcome, Steve. So thank you, Steve. So for everybody else, Steve Baird here in Aberdeen. If I'm correct.
Near enough, yes.
Near enough.
Almost correct, yes.
Has worked for Shell for a number of years. I'll let you introduce yourself, Steve. We've worked together the last few months on a very interesting project in Oman, of all places. Just shows how we can deliver digital services at a distance, because we never got a trip to Oman, unfortunately, but we didn't. I don't think we needed to. So, Steve, maybe a quick intro from yourself, and then we'll get into some questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely, no problem at all. Well, thanks first of all for having me on the call, and hopefully my audio is okay. So I'm sitting in sunny Aberdeenshire. I said sunny because initially Shrey asked what the weather was like in the different parts of the world. So it was sunny, but now of course it's raining, which is not that unusual in this part of the world. I did join Shell 21 years ago. It seems like yesterday, and I've done a variety of jobs in Shell. I started as a business development manager, supporting our downstream lubricants organization in the sale of industrial services. I then worked on a very large ERP transition project within downstream. So we were consolidating a multitude of procurement systems into one across 40 different markets. I then moved into marketing, and most recently did quite an unusual moved from a customer-facing role into a supplier-facing role. So I moved into our contracting and procurement team. And the reason I've given you that background is because this might sound quite an unusual career path to take. I think there's been a lot of advantages for me to have had taken that approach, simply because I came into C&P without any baggage or preconceptions on what contract procurement is designed to do. And I think that probably leads quite nicely into the discussion we're going to have just now around about how I've been involved in trying to drive the change that's necessary within our CP team to adopt new technologies and to test new ideas and resolve business pain points. Not having that baggage, that defined statement in the back of your mind saying this is how you should work. If you don't have that, it actually makes it a lot easier to test something new, to be innovative, and hopefully, as I say, solve the problems that have sat for some time unsolvable.
Perfect. That is a great career path. And to say, yeah, so we've ended up in supply chain innovation. And before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of what we did in Oman, in the context and spirit of this session, maybe just kind of tell us a little bit about what you enjoy about your work and the domain you're in now, and what motivates you to be that kind of change maker to drive those changes, especially in a market that is, you might say, is quite traditional in its ways.
Well, certainly working in CP, and sorry if I keep referring to CP, so the contract and procurement, Shell loves acronyms, usually 3-letter, but in this case, it's just the 2. So working in CP has been a real eye-opener for me, particularly within the area that I focus on, which is around about digital innovation. And the part I enjoy the most about it is being presented with an issue without necessarily having a solution. So I talk to the business. The business explains to me as best they can what the pain point is. I then have the flexibility to decide how best to find a solution to that problem. That could be doing something internally with our internal teams, whoever that is. Or alternatively, I could go out to the market and research opportunities out there to see whether there's any technology that can help support the resolution of that issue. And that's where it does get really interesting, because you do find companies that have got some amazing tech that you have to caution yourself of getting too excited about, because of course you have to remain focused on what the pain point is. So can this technology solve the pain point? Are you looking at it from that dimension? Or are you looking at it simply because you think it looks excellent and really exciting? So I think for me, the interest comes from the fact that we have the ability to do that research, to that external reach out just to see what companies are out there that can help us solve these problems.
That's interesting. So what you've got to be pretty open-minded at that point to kind of scan the market, look for something, and especially if you're not necessarily got a given answer to a given problem. What value do you see in taking that kind of approach and adopting those new innovations, as opposed to, as you say, trying to solve it the way you always might have solved it?
So within CP, again, sorry for the use of the acronym, I manage a group called Game Changer, which is effectively our innovations team. The first question that we have to ask is there a business pain point that is worth solving? So just because of the pain point doesn't necessarily mean to say that we just go after a solution to it. If it doesn't have any value to it, then there's really no point. So I have to start from that point. What is the likely benefit of making this change? Can we quantify that in some way, whether it's a dollar value saving, whether it's a time saving? Is it possible to understand what that figure looks like, and then weigh that up to determine whether or not the value of implementing the project or testing the project justifies the scale of the saving? So I always have to start from that perspective. The second thing I then need to look at is, even if it does work, does the solution work for Shell? So not everything necessarily falls within our approach to doing things. I'm looking at a project just now, for example, on the use of AI to negotiate contracts. Now, it's again really interesting technology. There's lots of different solutions to resolving this problem, this pain point, which is effectively multiple people negotiating the same terms and contract over and over again. There's lots of different ways in which you can do that. The question, though, is which one of those is best aligned with Shell's approach. So looking at value, you look at approach, and then you decide whether or not it's something that's worthwhile going after.
Okay, so bearing all that in mind, how have you found the experience of digitizing, building that remote capability, which is what we promote, with a technology like Vynn's SmartVideoNotes?
So again, exactly the same approach was taken. I was presented with a pain point, and maybe, Ansel, this is the right time maybe to explain what the pain point was, if that's okay. So I was presented with a pain point that came out of one of our actually non-operated ventures. So this is a part of the world whereby Shell does not have a fully owned asset. We are part of a joint venture in Oman with both the Omani government plus another party. So Shell is a minority shareholding in Oman. Nevertheless, we still have a responsibility to ensure that the asset is operated in a safe manner, which is very much core to Shell's ethos. Whatever we do has to be done safely. So in Oman, there was a fairly high number of road safety incidents taking place with our contractor driver workforce, and there was a multitude of reasons for that. The road conditions were not particularly great. The weather at times could be really difficult. Plus, also there was a perceived time pressure on some of the drivers as well. So, all in all, it created an issue for us that we had to address. We had to look at ways in which we could really focus on safety issues. Could we reduce incidents that were taking place and effectively improve the lives of those that are actually working for us within the market? Now, one of the things that we always do when we send a vehicle out onto the road is, you can imagine these 20-ton trucks. We do a vehicle inspection, so it's not just a simple case of walking around your car and making sure the tires are not flat. This is a detailed inspection that takes place on multiple parts of that vehicle before it's allowed to exit the plant. What was happening previously, and this is where the pain point came from, was that the audit process was seen as being more of a tick box exercise. So the drivers would walk around their truck, they would quickly tick it, they'd get in their truck, and then they'd drive off. That wasn't good enough. What we wanted to have was a more integrated system whereby, first of all, we were encouraging the drivers to do a walk around and do a commentary at the same time, so that they were picking up key points as they walked around the vehicle. Secondly, we wanted to have a way in which we could use the results from that walk round to create some sort of dashboard on the commonly occurring faults that we're seeing. And then thirdly, and this is probably more for the future, we're wanting to test the AI so that it could actually start seeing errors or failures on a vehicle where the driver didn't see them themselves. And I'll give you a specific example in that. On any vehicle, Shell would expect there to be 2 fire extinguishers. So we did a test to see whether or not we could configure the software to actually pick up on whether or not there was 2 fire extinguishers or one, or whether that fire extinguisher was visible, dusty, dirty, what have you. So just testing and pushing the technology a little bit further than what it was originally designed for to help support this whole safety assessment. And by doing that, of course, what you then have is you've got a second pair of eyes. You've got not just the driver's human view of things, and of course, being human, you can get things wrong quite easily. We wanted to back this up with the AI. Why? Because we wanted to have a safer environment for our contractor drivers to work in, wanted to improve their lives, and we felt that by testing this through AI could hopefully help us achieve that end goal. You're on mute.
We only did it for something like 6 weeks. So what sort of quick benefits did you see just in that short period of just bringing that remote video capability?
I'll give you a very specific example. So within the area that I mentioned, so Game Changer, we just test ideas. So it's very rare that we deploy something into production. And the reason for that is that Shell's philosophy in this is that if you test it well enough, it gives you a better indication of how well something will do when it goes into a deployment and into a live production environment. So my area really only ever tests something in a test or something known as sandbox environment. We very rarely push something into a live production environment. That comes afterwards. This is one of the very few POCs that I've worked on in 2.5 years, whereby we've actually been able to identify a fault or an outcome as part of the POC itself, a live outcome. So there was, I think, 5 safety incidents that the tool picked up just during the purposes or the course of the POC. 2 related to potential brake issues, which could have resulted in brake failure. 1 was related to loose wheel nuts. Now that's probably testing the software a little bit far. I think probably what happened was that the camera or the assessor picked up the fact that maybe one of the wheel nuts looked a little bit misaligned, and then on inspection realized the nuts of the wheel were actually loose, which is obviously quite worrying. And then there was a couple of issues around about the suspension as well. Now all of those could have resulted in a safety incident. So in this case, the POC or the proof of concept actually highlighted these issues and prevented the vehicle from going out onto the road until they were sorted.
So it'd be fair to say, and it's a method we deploy every time, but actually whatever we do, whether it's POC or anything, it should feel and act like a live situation. So and immediately you could roll straight into an ongoing benefit. But I think there's something in the way in which a human is encouraged to talk and actually voice and think about what they are seeing, that for them then brings their attention, brings that higher level of awareness, and therefore picks these things up.
Well, we actually had a video, one of the videos we've used internally highlighted this very point, where one of the assessors was walking around the vehicle doing an audio commentary as he walked around, and he noticed an inspection of the brake actuators, which is basically part of the braking system, that it was defective, and you could hear, even just by the tone of his voice, the fact that he was almost surprised to see this. So, and I don't know if that would have come up had it just been a quick walk around with a checklist. So it was actually highlighting that. For those of you that are maybe less aware with the functionality of what the tool does, it also picks up keywords. The AI will pick up keywords, which you can then, it will then digitize those words and allow you to effectively create some sort of metadata, which would then allow you to, after the event, click on that word to identify the actual fault. So things like that, I think, were really quite literally game changing, without wanting to sound too cliche, but it certainly did help a lot for the approach that was taken in the field.
So here's some tips, Session. So how can others, would you say, learn from your experience in adopting this sort of technology, especially in a large enterprise like Shell? What would you say is kind of a guiding light that you would give to them?
So number one, be open-minded. Really be open-minded to explore different options, and don't be fixated on the solution. We all like that. That it's almost like the magpie syndrome, something that's shiny and attracts your eye and something you want to go after. I would suggest you don't do that. Focus very much on the pain point that you're being presented with. If you've got that, it makes further discussions you're going to have much simpler, because you can always refer back to why are you doing something. It's much easier to make that argument. Especially when you're allocating budget to it as well. So you need to be able to justify the reasoning behind it. And it's a lot easier to do that if you focus on the pain point rather than on the solution. Interestingly enough, if I look historically back at Shell, before I came into this role, in fact, one of the founding reasons for Game Changer being created was that we didn't really have an innovations lab. Shell would invest money in the deployment of a project without necessarily testing its viability, first of all. So as you can imagine, a lot more would have been invested in deploying something than is now invested in the testing of it. So having that mentality, the preparation to be open-minded, also having a business behind you that's willing to make that investment, take that chance in some sort of test funding or seed funding, which then allows you to test and succeed or test and fail. I think having that mindset really helps.
To have that confidence to allow to fail as much as to succeed, I think is the bit, and sometimes separate funding can help that, but also a structure. Our observations, the way you did it was fantastic. You governed and, as you say, kept to that tight scope. So let's solve this problem before we get the shiny lights and drawn out. So fantastic.
Indeed.
Just last question. So what do you see for the future of for Vin, for us, and kind of how do you hope Vin will help sort of continue to help you going forward?
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe get a specific example, or we decided to work with Oman because there's a clear issue there. I mentioned this assessment that we wanted to do with Oman. Currently, the drivers do a 70-point assessment of the vehicle before they actually are permitted to go out onto the road. For the purposes of the proof of concept, we did 2 elements, and the reason for that was because we felt that by proving whether it was possible to successfully identify faults on 2 elements, if we could prove that, then it should be easier to justify further scale up rather than just approaching all 70. So that was never the intention. Just focus on a very narrow scope, but big enough to be able to create the justification to take something forward. So if I look at the future, we tested it in Oman because we had a specific issue. I think what we've now done is we've proven the capability. Once we get to the end of the proof of concept, we're actually doing a second phase of the proof of concept. So now, once we get to the end of that, what we'll do is reflect back on the outcome and the metrics, and then those metrics will be used to justify or to determine whether we take this to the next phase. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how things are going to go. All I can say is that so far it's been met with a lot of appreciation within Shell. There's a lot of people looking at this and really interested to see the outcome as we develop this second phase of the POC.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. We'll stop at that. We've got a few more bits to get through, Shrey. We'll want the agenda back on track. So thank you, Steve, for all your insights. And
right. So in the interest of time, I'll quickly whiz through some of the top tips that Mercedes and Steve have shared today for all of you. As I said, we will be typing these up properly and sending these out, so do keep an eye out for those. From Mercedes's winning story, some of the key top tips were to start small, clearly define what problem it is that you're trying to solve, because you have to get people on board. So you have to make them believe and see what it is you're trying to see. Change is, of course, always hard. So getting people to understand the why behind what you're doing is very crucial. Making sure you have the right stakeholders aligned, even sometimes when you might want to hold them off till the end. It's good to bring them on early and at the right time so that you can get objections answered quickly. And I think one of the things that I love about what Mercedes said was focusing on the positives, share the benefits that people are going to experience from the change that you're trying to bring about. I think it's one of the best ways to get people to see what it is that you're trying to show them. From Steve, he's just given us top tips, but if we can quickly whiz through as well, is to obviously adopt an open-minded approach, because there is a lot of innovation out there, and you have to be open to seeing what might work best for you, and the pain points that you're trying to solve. Going through that process in a well thought out way, I think, is definitely the right approach to take. Focus on properly understanding the issue rather than the shiny things that innovations bring you, because they do bring a lot of cool things that you might not have experienced before. But understanding what the core pain point and problem that you're trying to solve was a fantastic point. Again, similar of making sure you have the right stakeholders aligned on the journey, and actually noticing and picking on people who might be able to advocate the change for you, and become a supporter or actually an implementer. I think that's really really important to pinpoint those other champions that you can bring along on the journey with you. Advertising your success, Steve, I think that's a fantastic top tip as well, because as you are putting yourself through an often difficult journey of change, and bringing on new things into some place where maybe you're focusing on more traditional approaches, advertising the success and the sort of hard work that you've done, and the innovation has helped you with, can sort of bear a lot of fruit when you're going forward in making these new changing processes. And to finish off, I think fantastically enjoying what you're doing, that you're doing groundbreaking stuff, and not many people have the opportunity. Not many people have the resources even often sometimes to embark on these kind of journeys. So what you're doing is really cool, and you should be happy about it. So thank you to Steve and Mercedes for the top tips that they've shared. Now I'll hand over to Stuart, who will share a quick update on Vyntelligence and what we've been up to.
I actually want to pick up on something that Steve said around doing the simple things and not being distracted by the shiny things. In terms of in the last Vynners Community, we talked about the live call capability we've built, but coming from Yorkshire, I'm going to quote something my old rugby coach used to tell me, which is the best things are simple things done at speed. So I'm just going to take you back to the basics of what Vyn does in terms of asynchronous for customer issue reporting and customer data capture, and where the value for that is. Increasingly, we're seeing demand for customers and the use of video. So we often see a lot of demand for live call, a lot of people saying that they need live call. So where does asynchronous fit into that as an end-to-end solution? And I just wanted to kind of talk about where we're seeing a huge spike in demand. One of the challenges with live call versus asynchronous is we've been talking to the energy networks, obviously, with things that have gone on with the energy prices going parabolic, where the energy networks are seeing a huge spike in demand for low carbon technology, where they need to go out and do site surveys. It would be technically possible to do all of that with a live call, a live video, if you had an enormous call center. But the concern and why they've approached Vyn is that they don't believe they've got the demand for that. And they're looking for a way to let customers report at their own time, and to reduce the time spent with the customer on the telephones to be able to remotely assess what the customers are doing. In fact, this particular video came from a call this morning with another customer that was asking about building foundations and underpinning buildings. What would happen if the customer had to go into a cellar to record some video? Now, on a live call, you're going to drop that call. So if you want to play the video, Shrey, and pop it on mute, I thought I'd test myself and see what would happen if we did it with Vyn.
Sure.
So you can see I start and I very quickly throw myself in airplane mode, and then the joys of an old house disappear underground. So this would be a customer doing this directly from a browser. So whereas Steve in Oman, they're using the app, they're using the Vyn app on Android or iOS. This is just in a normal web browser. You can see the airplane. So there's no connection, but we're still able with Vyn to guide the customer on what we need to capture. We're getting nice, clear, crisp video. It's structured. Customer can take the photographs that they need, fill out all the form data that's required, still with no signal. And then that's stored if the customer attempts to upload when there is no signal. So you can see, although an error has occurred because we're offline, as soon as I put airplane mode back on, safely run upstairs, it's gone. It's now back and sat in the call center. Now, that looks really easy for a reason, because it's designed that way. With a customer, with an engineer, when we're deploying an app, Mercedes said it was very easy and the engineers found it intuitive. That's still an app. They still have a period of familiarity where they can ask questions with people. With a customer, you don't get the opportunity, where you're sending them a link and you're relying on the fact that it's got to be so simple they can just press a button and use it, because if they don't, it's a one-time thing and they're just going to pick up the telephone and call the contact center. What we've seen from customers is the customer feedback scores from people using Vin for issue reporting versus a telephone. We're starting to see that come back as higher because the quality of the resolution from having the video, from having the clarity, it's actually really improving that. So I haven't shown a lot of bells and whistles today because I just wanted to kind of go back to basics and what it does. Having said that, I would like to give a little thank you to our engineering team, who, regardless of what we ask, every sentence that comes from customer success or ourselves with, could we just, to take the point on Shell of, could we just detect if there are fire extinguishers? Could we just detect the tires? They always come up with the answers. They always deliver that. But I think sometimes it's good to remind ourselves of the value of doing the simple things.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stuart. What we'll do now is move on to the questions. So if there are any questions in the chat, or if anyone has any questions, please put those in the chat. Else you could also raise your hand and we can allow you to ask the question.
So we have one for Sean already here on the chat. It's from Mick. Since Mercedes audio, and I think there was a problem in the video as well. So if Sean, you can hear me now, if you can just briefly recap the beneficial impacts of the tool for the pilot that was run with Enel. Melissa is here with us as well. And Melissa, if you can briefly talk about the work that we did with Enel and with Mercedes and Sean's team, to recap what was the beneficial impact of using Vin in the field.
So thank you, Vineet. I think one of the key things for Enel, it was helping them. They're starting to work in a radically different way. They're in a fast growth environment, so they're going to expand their projects, and they have an issue with getting the same people that they're doing the work today need to be able to attend to a greater number of work in the greater number of sites and address more inspections. So by enabling remote inspection, we're able to upskill and multi-skill the current inspectors that they have. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits that they're seeing. So we're helping, for example, before an electrical engineer was only able to do the electrical inspections. Now an electrical engineer is able to also do a civil or mechanical inspection through a guided workflow. And he's guided through the whole inspection. He's able to capture the data. And even if he's not the expert on the site on that, then a remote expert is able to review that data and give the guidance that they need locally on the ground.
Thanks, Melissa. All right.
You said it perfectly. I think I now have it working. So thank you.
Oh, sorry, Sean. I didn't mean to take your. But please add. You have other insights as well and other things you've seen. So what has been your experience?
It has been great so far. Like you mentioned, the accessibility to have our non-SME positions in the field cover each other's workload has really been a key feature to be able to move forward with implementing this, because of our reduction of site resources in our projects. We've actually gone to about a third of our site presence. So it's been very important to make sure that we get the correct eyes on, and we have our experts now remote instead of physically on site in the field. So we're able to use Vin to accomplish that in a very successful way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Any recommendations to other people looking to do something similar? Well, in your experience, what would the, one or two tips that you'd give someone that was embarking on that process today?
Yeah, I think Mercedes recapped it very well. Starting small, making sure you have a clear direction, where as you're working with Vin, you go through and kind of explain exactly what you're looking for, and just keep the communication lines open. So you're constantly having those meetings to sync on exactly what you're looking for. Those small changes are available as needed, with quick turnaround time. So it's really just keeping that open communication with the team, and also starting small and just building out from there.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for being here with us.
Of course.
Thanks, John. It doesn't look like we have any other questions, Vinny, at the moment. So if not, then we'll go on to trying the technology. So if you guys have your phones handy, this is a great opportunity for you to open up your camera and quickly scan one of the QR codes, whichever one interests you. And imagine that you might be follow the direction that the app gives you to record a short video and submit your VINs in. If this is something that you would like to do after as well, you can scan the QR code now and it will be on your browser so that you can have a play with the technology a little later. I'll leave it on for a couple of more seconds just so people can grab their phones and scan. And then one of the options that is on the storyboard when you try the technology is to enable yourself to enroll into a free trial with Vyntelligence, which is what we're currently offering. And I'll just explain that quickly before we finish off. If you also have any questions that that arise from trying the technology, you can drop those in the chat, or we will get in contact to ask for any of your feedback. I'll move on to the free trial slide now. So when you do try the technology and scan the QR code, you'll be able to see that what you're focusing on, what you're playing with, is essentially one of the first part of the Vyntelligence solution, which is the capture part of our technology that you can use through the web link, depending on if you're a customer, or an app if you are an engineer already enrolled. But there is a lot more that helps with building the remote capabilities. So our backend technology, which is our smart dashboards and our AI analytics that are provided from the work and the VINs that are captured, are something that you can also try in our free trial and get to explore and play with to see how it actually works and what are some of the benefits and outcomes you might be able to get from using Vin SmartVideoNotes. So if that is something that you are interested in, as I said, you can do that from the QR code that you've scanned. There will be an option, or you can contact us at hello@vyntelligence.com for any other questions or to enroll yourself. That's all that we have for today. Thank you, everyone from around the world and in different places that have joined us, or if you're watching this on demand as well. Thank you, a big thank you to our speakers and Star Vynners, Steve and Mercedes, and Sean as well, for being here, for sharing their stories, and for being a Star Champion winner. To all of you who have joined us, thanks once again for your passion to learn and get some insights and top tips. We hope you've learned something interesting today. I know I have picked up some top tips that I'd like to apply in the work that I do. And we hope to see you next time on the 30th of November. And if any of you would like to share some of your winning stories, you can again get in contact with us at hello@vyntelligence.com. Thanks everyone, and have a good rest of your week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.